Bro, what are you doing? What is this? What is this? What is happening? Holy shit, that's some gaming. What is my dude doing? I honestly did it like it could have been this guy or the modern jury. I honestly it seemed about the same. Both of these guys were just going through it. They were going through some emotions. Stuff was happening there. But you know, a player like this that just goes full ham the entire round, like there's zero chill, is actually, like, for most players is going to be really hard to deal with. I think that's something that people kind of overlook, is players like this will smoke the vast majority of people unless you're actually good at dealing with Unga. I think that's kind of a huge breaking point in this game that will determine how consistent you are at this game. Is, can you deal with Unga? Can you deal with Black Bomber 559 just fucking pressing buttons in your face? For the vast majority of players, that's a no, or that's a maybe. I don't know, it depends on the day. This shit, it does require a lot of work from the player in order to prepare for somebody just mashing their face on their controller, right?
Motorboat? You play the motorboat?
What is wrong with you?
It does require a lot of prep work. Like, you have to be super comfortable in anti-airing, you have to be super comfortable in dealing with drive rush and perfect pairing strings and being able to bait out reversals. Like, you have to be comfortable with a lot of the different situations in this game in order to consistently beat somebody like Black Bomber 559. You have to be okay, like, you have to be comfortable with that, and that shit's hard. In this game, it's really fucking difficult. The more I play, the more, you know, the wider the gap between the top players and the rest of the player base gets, I realize that a big part of that gap, a big reason for that gap, is top players are just way more consistent at dealing with Black Bomber 559's tactics, right? With this type of playstyle of just fucking full-on buttons, constant buttons, full-on aggression, where most of the player base, even the player base that are, you know, are good, it's kind of a like losing battle. They're just trading blow for blow with this type of playstyle, and they can't really like slow down the game. Yeah, this is like, there's a clear example of like somebody that will smoke a lot of people in tournaments. They might just fucking random you out, even if you feel like you're good, because you suck at dealing with this playstyle. You suck at dealing with Unga. That is a clear division between the top players and then just regular old good players. I feel like there's a decently sized pool. There's a lot of players where I'd put them in the good player category. There's only a handful or so that I put in the great player category. And that is one huge determining factor. That creates a gap right there, because it is a big gap, man. It is a really big gap, and it's getting wider and wider as the game develops. You have to be able to deal with this shit. You have to. If you can't consistently deal with just YOLO aggression, you're just gonna forever be stuck there. You're gonna forever be like a pop monster in tournaments, or maybe like a landmine in tournaments, where you might take out somebody in pools or you might upset somebody, but you'll never make it far, because this is a place that you will encounter constantly. And if you're streaky that day, if you're not feeling it, you're done. You're fucking done, man. I feel like most players like will fall in that category where they're just streaky against this shit. A lot of players still playing SF5 meta, hence Unga Bunga. That's not true. People were playing Unga and Street Fighter 4 too. Dude, that's just fighting games. That's just fighting games. Playing Unga, aka playing just reckless with aggression, is typically the easiest way to play fighting games. That typically grants you like the easiest wins, right? It's a path of least resistance, which people will often take. Why? Because it's like, it's non-interactive. You don't really have to care much about what your opponent's doing. You just run your shit. You run your script, you know? You go on training mode and figure out some sequences and figure out some stuff, like this is a combo, okay, you know, if I land this combo, I can get this as meaty and then do this, and like, you run these scripts in training mode, you learn them, and then you just fucking turn off your brain and just try to like apply them to your opponent. Just try to force your opponent into dealing with that shit, you know? You just turn off your brain and do shit. That's just in fighting games, man. That's just fighting games. That's usually the path of least resistance. It's just turning off your brain and going full offensive, because you're putting your opponent in an awkward situation where you have to deal with it, you know? If you don't know how to stop me from turning off my brain and pressing buttons, I get a free win. And guess what? It is hard. It's much harder to stop the Unga than it is to do the Unga, you know? You're putting your opponent in a situation where it's much more difficult for them to deal with the shit than it is for you to do it. You don't have to think while doing it. You're just fucking doing it. You're just pressing buttons, you know? I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna punch the air. I'm gonna turn green. I'm gonna hold up forward. It's up to you to deal with it. Like, that's the case, man. So I understand. Like, that was like that for Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5, and now Street Fighter 6. But in Street Fighter 6, you know, we have a lot more whiners. I think it's just during this format or this time frame, we are way more online than we were with the other games, so we hear a lot more opinions, and according to people, this is just the scrubbiest shit. The other games, there was a lot of scrubby play too. The difference in this game is Drive Rush is very hard to deal with. It is very difficult to deal with, so hence the Unga players get a super easy neutral skip that force you into a shit position. It's not foolproof, obviously, or else Black Bomber 559 would be winning stuff, right? You see just random players just, you know, place in tournaments or win tournaments, and it'd just be chaos. But that's not the case. The players that you see on top are the usual names, those of actually like top players. So you know, obviously, like, it's not that chaotic because they're controlling it. It's just more difficult. This is just way more difficult, man. It is more difficult to control the Unga in this game than it was in other games. Well, I'm not gonna. Street Fighter 4 was kind of. There's a lot of bullshit in that game, like fighting against Forte. Like there was bullshit in all these games, man. This is just incredibly easy to execute. It doesn't require a lot of lab work to turn green and press a button and force your opponent to deal with it. It really doesn't. It doesn't take big brain power to go for a full screen Dragon Lash, you know? Like it's just easy. It's easy to like turn on offense in this game, and it's difficult to stop it. But that's not an excuse to not being able to stop it. You have to, like, if you want to advance from the good player to decent player, you know, average, whatever, like that category, if you want to advance to the next level, you have to be able to like stop this form of play. If you're not, then guess what? You just plateau there. You're just stuck there. That's what really shows a true sign of mastery in games, is the ability to do something difficult in them and consistently. What's difficult to do in this game? It's not the combos. It's not offense. It's actually defense. It's actually like being able to control neutral. That's difficult in this game because there's so many moves that just skip it. But the top players have shown that if you have that, they have that. And they are fucking consistent. They're smoking everybody. You know, that's why. Just this mastery of neutral, being able to actually slow down the game, being able to punish the Unga. If you can't punish the Unga, you will die to it. And you're just going to be sitting there complaining about how scrubby the game is. I mean, that's much easier than just getting good, right? It's much easier to just complain about the scrubbiness instead of actually improving in it. Man, shut up and punch people. Good point. Good point. Point was made.